Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel, wishing you a happy early start to this nice macro Sunday morning over here as we are going to be looking at some very high term timeframes for Bitcoin. That means that we will not be looking at any lower term timeframe analysis today. Yesterday's video is very much relevant for that, except for the very short term timeframes, which we did get that move to the top of the range that we were looking for. It was incredibly short term though, so not obviously reasonable to be looking at today. And other than that, yes, I should probably quickly show my Instagram. I've been uploading a lot of Bitcoin and trading bit content there. There is a link in the description below. And then Bybit still has their promotion going on with 0% on fees for maker orders for both spot and derivative contracts with the link in the description below as well. All right, sweet. Let's jump into it right now with chess. No, this is very embarrassing. Actually, definitely not my best game playing against the advanced bots right there. Very, very difficult, but here it is. Yes. So I wanted to start off with my best case scenario for Hopium. So whenever I am feeling, or whenever I feel like the market sentiment is really overweighted to one side, in this case, the bearish side, I want to be playing a game with myself where I'm asking if I could steel man an argument for the reverse to happen, in this case, a bullish outlook, what could I do in this case? Well, in this case, I would be looking at actually the dollar index, Dixie, if you will. And Dixie is actually related to a basket of fiat currencies. So it's the dollar versus a basket of other fiat currencies. It's not directly proportional to risk on assets, which is where I think a lot of people get mixed up on. That is to say that on the very short-term timeframes or even medium-term timeframes, if you're looking at, oh, Dixie went down here, so I'm expecting my Bitcoins to go up. It's probably not going to work like that. At least I've observed not a useful relationship in that capacity. But when we're looking at very high-term timeframes, when we're looking at macro trends, that is where it actually does have a pretty good history of doing such. Anyways, a few things of interest right here. So first and foremost, we can see that weekly BBWP, which represents volatility, is hitting two extremes right here. Whenever I see two extremes hit kind of close to each other in succession, I do look at that, or I do typically see that there is reversals starting after that. Now, I would say pullback, maybe not reversal in this case, but you get the point. On top of that, I would say that this is not confirmed just yet. We really want to see the BBWP start to go into an official contraction phase. Otherwise, it can max out here for longer. But, perhaps this happens on the next tick coming up this next week. That's definitely possible. So we can update on that next week. But in this case, yeah, it is. We are seeing two extremes. And so that is telling us that, this current move, the momentum on it, is probably going to come to a halt somewhat soonish. On top of that, if we go into just straight up candlestick analysis, then we do see that there is a bearish engulfing going on from last week's closure in comparison to the prior week. So in this case, last week did trade about 22 cents higher than the week prior and closed below the low of the prior week as well. So we do have a bearish engulfing right there, which is a signal of reversal as well. And then also we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 drives of bearish divergence on weekly RSI, also doing the exponential there as well. And we can also see potentially a weekly jewel sell signal, of which we haven't seen the like since, what was the last really good one? I guess over here kind of, or definitely over here. This was, hey, stop that. Yeah, but even that was actually not as high as what we're looking at right now. So I don't think it's necessarily comparable. But in this case, it is not confirmed just yet. What we really want to be seeing is we want to see both of them have a negative slope, and with the jewel itself having a dark blue signature. If that happens, then yeah, which could be on the next tick as well. Although this could still grind its way out a little bit. So very, very important to be actually waiting for full on confirmation. On top of that, the weekly stochastic oscillator is going to be pointed to the downside direction. So that does mean that there is downside momentum as long as Dixie's closing below 113, which it certainly did last week, and that is basically the high set of all these wicks over here that we've seen over the past 4 to 5 weeks. And so if that is going to play out, then, first target would be likely somewhere down around $1.09 and 75 cents, probably a short-term bounce there. And then a potential low after that bounce is initiated somewhere around the 21 exponential average, which is about $1.08.5. But here's the thing: when I see multiple drives of bearish divergence on weekly RSI or any time frame for that matter, more than 2 basically, those are the ones that do have the possibility to actually trade all the way down to the 55 obviously over time. We're looking at a weekly. I mean, this could take months to realistically play out. But if things really do get nasty to the downside for Dixie, this would probably come after some sort of a Fed meeting or FOMC, which I believe we got one in about a week or two, something like that. Then we do see a lot of moves down to the 55, which is significantly lower, which will be rising, of course, but will probably be somewhere around about $1.04.5 to $1.05.5 coming into the next month to 2 months. So ultimately, if that were if that were to play out, do you risk assets get a bit of a reprieve here, or at least get a chance to rally, maybe put in another bear market rally? Yeah, definitely possible. Long term, however, I want to reiterate my stance with this, that, if we go to the quarterly, so a 3-month chart here, I'm still pretty fucking bullish on this. Wouldn't be surprised to see it hit above, somewhere just north of about $1.20, coming into maybe like early 2023, and then longer term, potentially more than that as well if things really get crazy. But I suspect that we're gonna have a lot of time in between there, so I don't need to speak about that right now. But yeah, that could play into basically a short-term pullback relative on a weekly with long-term continuation. I mean, this one still is gonna have higher lows on higher term timeframes for quite some time, so it'll be a long waiting game, I suspect. Anyways, I wanted to now fit that into the higher term time frame analysis, the statistically based analysis for Bitcoin on the daily and 5 days. So we'll start off here with the daily. This is the one that I think everyone's probably quite familiar with if you've been on this channel for any small amount of time now. I know it's fucking boring, but of course it does matter simply because it is in play right now. Is in play meaning that there is a setup. So what essentially is the signal? It is a volatility versus momentum signal. Volatility represented by this indicator, the BBWP indicator, and basically anytime that it gets below 10 percentile or more, I consider that extreme lows, extreme contractions. And over the full history of CME, there has been, after that extreme contraction, an expansion phase to follow, as naturally happens with volatility. And the average move following that expansion phase has been about 24.25%. Done over the course of 2.5 weeks, and the stochastic also has been correct in getting the volatility expansion direction 83.33% of the time. So in this case, we do have obviously full contraction going on right now. It's basically, I mean, it might as well be at 0 percentile. It's technically at 1.19. But ultimately, the next set of criteria to confirm an actual expansion phase would be two things. One, BBWP needs to have a positive slope and above the moving average. Right now it has neither. And then two, for full on confirmation, needs to be back above the critical zone at 10 percentile right here that my cursor is currently on. See that? Then yes, the signal is confirmed, and then we can go reference the stochastic oscillator's direction for a high probability direction on the actual move itself. Again, we're talking about high probabilities. We're talking about 83.33, which is like fucking good, or at least in my opinion, is fucking good. I mean, on Twitter, maybe not so much. You always see crazy things on Twitter, of course. But ultimately, that is not 100%. It is not a certainty. So it gives us, at least it gives me a bias on direction. In this case, it is technically about to be pointed to the downside, or actually it's going to probably be flat coming into open tonight, because basically closed exactly at the pivot, which is 19,185. So I'm curious to see what it's going to look like on Monday, what that new pivot is. Is that number going to be higher than our current number, or is it going to be lower? If it's higher, then probably a good insight that Bitcoin's going to come back down to the bottom side of the range. And of course, if it actually does, move higher above there, or meaning that the actual pivot is lower, then perhaps another bear market rally in store here. Anyways, so that's the daily. Now I wanted to expand this, being that it is a macro Sunday, into the 5-day time frame. So the 5-day signal here is similar to the daily one in terms of actual setup, but it is a 5-day time frame, and it's also on spot price action. And being that it is significantly a higher time frame, it's going to naturally have much greater results. Sorry, I completely forgot to go over the actual areas of interest here on the daily. Let me just go back to this. So after the signal is confirmed, we can then go look at the average move, and you can also look at the first standard deviation over here, which I've plotted in as well. But just for time's sake, I'll look at what a 24% move to the upside looks like, which would put Bitcoin like 23 to 24,000 bucks. To the downside, it would be somewhere around, put Bitcoin somewhere around like, let's say I think it's like 15,000 bucks from the actual signal given. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be like 15,500 bucks, give or take 500 from that number, which I do kind of like as an area as well, because I do feel like a lot of people are getting, very, very bearish right now, and for good. I mean, there's a lot of good reason to be very, very bearish, but there's a difference in calling a move down to 15,000 than 10,000 or 8,000 or 6,000 or anything like that. Which is possible, yes, but I suspect that there'd probably be like, a lot of bounce along the way and time to reposition, if such happened. Anyways, going on to the 5-day over here. Again, same signal, same signature. It is a 5-day BBWP representing, again, volatility. Where's my damn chart? There it is. Yes, there we go. Representing volatility versus stochastic momentum. So same setup over here. This one is contracted now to the lowest levels that we've seen almost ever, comparable to July of 2020 before Bitcoin had a massive explosive move to the upside, comparable to November 2018 where Bitcoin had a massive explosive move to the downside. This one, however, over the past 4 to 5 years now, has actually been perfect in getting the direction in alignment with the stochastic oscillator. So I thought that was interesting here. But again, just like the daily that we looked at, you don't have confirmation on volatility expansion until the 5 days, at least above the 15 percentile mark in this case. So the 5-day critical region I do define as 15 percentile, not 10 percentile. So this one's pretty damn far away from being confirmed as of right now. But I did think that it was interesting to reference the stochastic direction because right now it is pointed to the upside, kind of. I mean, it just closed last night. It will turn back onto the downside with any sort of a closure below 18,765. So that's a big number to be watchful and mindful of coming into this next closure, which, won't be for another 4 days. But if you do see things start to close below that region, and especially if volatility starts to tick up, probably going to be a good indication that the next major move is going to be to the downside. Anyways, like I said, because it is a 5-day, the average move is going to be, significantly greater. Takes a lot longer as well, about 37 days on average. The average move going to be about 42.35%. And well, let's just play around with numbers here. So in this case, let's see, to the downside, 42% puts you where? That puts you in the $11,500 range. To the upside, let me just take it from here. 42% puts you basically around the summer highs or so, which obviously could, have more on it as well. But for right now, you can kind of see what's at risk for both sides, where the major pivots are when they're closing, and then of course a little bit of hopium as we play the game over here. Anyways, other than that, I think that's a good place to be leaving off on a video like this. I hope that this one serves you well, nice and short and sweet on a macro Sunday because, well, most of the things are fucking boring. But that was fun. That was fun for me at least. Anyways, take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.